Dear Diary.
Gosh, that was a close call.
It's been a year since I walked away from the Daily Planet, trading my typewriter for a life of shadows and danger. The path I chose was far from easy, but fueled by a burning desire for justice. I entered the world of espionage, a world where truth and deception intertwined in a deadly dance. Today, standing at the precipice of another mission, it all feels like a distant dream. Let me rewind a year, back to the day I left the Daily Planet. It all started with that dreadful day at the Henderson Caves. My heart shattered when I found the proof I'd feared for so long. Clark Kent, my beloved Clark, was also Superman. My world was turned upside down. This revelation could have been the reason why I quit my job at the Planet. What took me over the edge was when Perry read my manuscript on the race of fearsome hawkmen living in an underground world and burned it, telling me, "Nobody will ever believe it." I told him to take this job and shove it. I walked out, and instead of confronting Clark, I did the unthinkable. I left. I disappeared and haven't seen Clark, nor Superman since that day. Germany became my new home. And I became someone else, a blonde bombshell with a fiery spirit and a thirst for justice. I fully immersed myself into my new role. But first, my dear diary, I guess I should go back and start from the beginning. You must have figured out by now that I have been living a double life, working as a reporter and an agent. My first assignment was to take down the Caduceus Coalition. They are a cabal of scientists, geneticists, biologists, and also engineers working with robots and artificial intelligence. This group of scientists are morally ambiguous. They are more than okay with committing unspeakable acts in the name of science if they believe that the ends justify the means. Their twisted experiments, their disregard for human life, fueled my resolve to bring them down. The first one in the group that I took down with the help of Superman was the geneticist who referred to himself in the third person as the mad scientist. He became obsessed with engineering animals into perfect super beasts. His creations caused mayhem in our society. He had the raven with human-like qualities. He created the ape, known as Gigantic, which could increase his body size at will and injured so many during his rampage. He had a hand in creating the Giganotosaurus, which caused the deluge where hundreds perished beneath a broken dam. I must admit that I was still green as an agent at that time, and Superman really saved my hide. The mad scientist is now confined to a maximum security cell, far from any labs. His days of manipulating genes and conducting experiments are over, at least for the foreseeable future. My next mission was to stop the evil roboticist and his mechanical monsters. The agency made sure that I was placed at the right place, at the right time to accomplish my mission.
What a story this is going to
The jewels. What have you done with the jewels?
The chilling prospect of the roboticist's mechanical nightmares dancing to the tune of someone else's paychecks haunted the agency. His avarice was a Trojan horse, poised to unleash chaos. Thanks to the Kryptonian. By the way, this is information I learned from our many interviews. We stopped the evil roboticist and his mechanical monsters. His horde of robots put Superman through the ringer before he turned them into scrap metals. Next up to bat was Dr. Manhattan. He went Batcave crazy thinking Manhattan was his own. His own. Because he was a descendant of the original people who inhabited the island. That would be the Native Americans.
Get ready for the greatest story of your career.
He made the ground shake and rumble all over the city. like some scary song of destruction. Buildings crashed down, sirens screamed, and people ran in fear. No one was safe from Dr. Manhattan's madness. Everyone in Manhattan became part of his messed-up game, like little chess pieces on a giant earthquake board. Their city, their home, turned into a playground for his twisted dreams. It was all because he thought he owned the whole island, which was super weird. Superman and I made sure to put an end to his delusions. Dr. Manhattan is currently incarcerated at Rikers Island, which he also bizarrely insists belongs to him as well. The next group within the Caduceus Coalition was led by a woman, a fact unknown to us until after their apprehension. The cigarette-chomping, heavy lipstick-wearing Mother Mayhem headed the group, though she designated one of her two sons as the spokesperson. She was an extraordinary engineer. This trio of engineers caused havoc for the citizens of Metropolis. Their motive was to accumulate more wealth. They possessed a flying machine shaped like a bullet, nearly indestructible, capable of high-speed flight, and executing maneuvers that seemingly defied physics. This object was far superior in performance to our government's fighter jets. They relentlessly bombarded our city with their bullet-shaped flying machine. Sonic booms shattered windows as their bullet-shaped machine strafed the city rooftops, spitting fire and fury. Mother Mayhem crippled all our powers and brought the city to its knees. We didn't have the capability to stop them, but I knew my duty was to halt this group by any means necessary. I followed them around the city by car, found their lair, sabotaged their vehicle, and with the help of Superman, stopped Mother Mayhem and her boys from causing further damage to the city. Dr. Dynamo, the final cog in the Caduceus Coalition's twisted machine, cared nothing for human lives. He used a magnetic telescope to pull a green comet, shimmering with death, towards Earth. The comet, dubbed Kryptonite in hushed whispers at the agency, held the key to Superman's vulnerability. Dr. Dynamo's plan was to obtain this comet and use it as a weapon against Superman. This was the one time when I truly felt that I could help the Man of Steel. He became weak once in contact with the kryptonite, but in the end, we devised a plan to send the comet back into space, away from our planet. Dr. Dynamo is still on the loose. We believe that he is hiding somewhere and is in possession of a piece of the comet. This means that Superman is vulnerable to whatever future plans he has in mind. And if Superman is in danger, that means my Clark is also in danger. Speaking of Clark and my immediate predicament, it wasn't a coincidence that I happened to be at Clark's location during my pursuit. I deliberately went to look for him, knowing where he would be on a particular night. He is a creature of habit.
Now look here, Kent. You can't pick your assignments. Hurry over and cover that consumers meeting.
But, Chief...
But nothing. That's final.
I left a trail of dead bodies that night as I escaped the enemy's lair with some vital documents. I took down the driver with my last bullet, and now I am unarmed. The gunman's car crashed into the drugstore, and they stole Clark's car. Unbeknownst to me, Clark dashed to catch up to them and grabbed onto the rear of his car. Hot on my tail was the gangster Shades Mulgrew. He's a lieutenant and enforcer for the Crime Syndicate of America. They are in cahoots with a Nazi sleeper cell in here in the U.S. The gunshots caught the attention of a police car, and they started to give chase. The gangsters attempted to shoot at the police, but Clark grabbed one of their guns and got rid of it. Finally, they blew out my tires, but fortunately, the gunmen sped off with Clark hanging on their rear bumper.
Gosh, that was a close call. I've got to get to police headquarters immediately.
Clark let himself get captured and learned that these gangsters and the Nazi ringleader are trying to get the records back from a lady secret agent. The German Nazi Herr the Monocle was furious with his henchmen's incompetence. Their plan was to stop me at the bridge to the airport. Clark had no clue the secret agent was me, Lois Lane.
They are probably the largest and most ruthless gang of saboteurs in this country. I know. For 6 months they thought I...
Safely at the police station, I explained to the police chief that I needed safe passage to take important documents to Washington, D.C., regarding the gang who were just trying to gun me down. For 6 months, I tricked them into thinking that I was a part of them and got records of the members' names and their insidious plans. Safe passage was granted. Unfortunately, the Crime Syndicate of America's goons, headed by Shades Mulgrew, had planned to ambush me on the way to the airport. Now, let me tell you about the Crime Syndicate of America, my dear diary. I have tangled with those bozos before. They were the second assignment handed to me by the agency. Those guys are all about the Benjamins, hence their collaboration with the Nazis. Undercover in a factory, overseen by the mob underboss known as Dapper Danny Zuko, became the focal point of my investigation. My mission was to expose saboteurs aiming to undermine our war effort against the Nazis. Unfortunately, my cover was compromised, forcing me to make a swift escape from a tight spot involving some of Danny's thugs. Ultimately, with Superman's assistance, we successfully dismantled their operation, leading to the incarceration of Danny and his henchmen in the federal penitentiary. The Crime Syndicate of America was bleeding money at every turn, as the agency started putting the squeeze on their criminal enterprise. In response, they devised a plan to steal $1 billion in gold from the National Mint. The gold was being transported by train, and they sent out a team known as the 5 o'clock Shadow Gang. Unfortunately for them, I was on board the train, and they made the biggest mistake of firing on me. Do you remember the caper, dear diary? I let loose on those 5 gangsters, screaming out loud, "Eat lead, you dirty rat bastards, and when you get to hell, tell them Lois freaking Lane sent you!" And I kept pumping lead into the pack until my Tommy gun was spent. With a runaway train on my hands, I had to act quickly to ensure it didn't plow into any civilians. There I was, the only one on the train with $1 billion worth of gold, on a collision course with God knows what. Thankfully, at the last minute, my savior Superman came to my rescue and safely brought the gold to the National Mint. As for the 5 o'clock Shadow Gang, 2 of them perished during the gold heist. With the crime syndicate going bankrupt, it gave us a chance to go after the big boss, the mobster known as Eddie G. Robinson. Eddie G. had his back against the wall due to a lack of funds and had to resort to simple small-time robbery to maintain his position as the boss of all the bosses of the Crime Syndicate of America. In desperation, Eddie G. started pulling several heists with the help of an individual named Bobby Quick. Eddie G. figured that he could kill 2 birds with 1 stone by rising through these heists and blaming Superman for them, having Bobby Quick dress as Superman when committing these crimes. Having lost $1 billion due to Superman's interference was an unforgivable slap in the face to Eddie G., and he wanted Superman to pay for that insult. The public started to turn against Superman, and Superman decided to clear his good name by going after Eddie G. himself. I guess Superman's reputation as a good citizen means a lot to him. As for me, after tracking down Eddie's whereabouts, and on my way along with the police to nab him, Superman beat me to the punch and brought him to the police. I didn't assist Superman in nabbing the biggest mobster in the whole US. And that, my dear diary, was the end of my 2 missions for the agency until I took the Germany assignment against the Nazis. Back to my current predicament, I had a police escort to the airport, but we were ambushed by the gangsters. In the midst of the gunfight, the driving policeman stepped out of our car to return fire. Another officer successfully dealt with Shades Mulgrew. I pressed on through the fighting, headed to the airport, knowing the documents must not fall into Nazi hands.
She's got through. She's heading this way. Quick!
At a bridge, another group of saboteurs took control. They turned the bridge to block me, But my training kicked in, and I jumped out of my car just in the nick of time. The car drove off the bridge, crashing into an electrical tower. Attempting to reverse the bridge, I was nearly shot by one of the gangsters. Despite the danger, I managed to reverse the bridge's turning. However, the electric tower began to fall, smashing into the bridge control room. I fell onto the bridge's turning mechanism, knocked unconscious. The gangster on the bridge called his superior, reporting my predicament. But police gunfire cut him off.
Hello, Erich. Hello. Zum Donnerwetter. Something went wrong. We've got to get...
Meanwhile, the Nazi boss and his goons locked Clark in another room and left with his henchmen to retrieve my important documents. Clark, breaking free, transformed into Superman.
Was ist los? Ist der Lois verrückt geworden? Zum Teufel! Was sollen wir tun? Schmeiß die Wände ein!
He jumped onto the cable of the elevator the gangsters were using, pulled their elevator up, and tied off the cable, preventing them from reaching me. I was seconds away from doom when Superman heard my scream and came to my rescue. As my life flashed before my eyes, I realized that my true love was also Superman, as he is the real person, and Clark is his disguise. I have to accept them both in whichever shape or form. They are both the love of my life. One is a true friend and the other is my forever protector. And I promise to keep their secret safe with me until the day they decide to reveal themselves to the citizens of our planet. Superman picked me up and flew us to Washington, D.C. Still not a word was uttered. All along I was thinking, can you read my mind, Superman? Can you read my mind? If so, I am sorry, my love. As I pen down these final words, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to all the viewers of the Vintage Classics YouTube channel who embarked on this journey with me. Your support has meant the world as the layers of my story unfolded, and the real Lois Lane was unveiled. Please do consider liking and subscribing to my channel. Until our paths cross again in the next adventure. Peace out. Lois Lane.